Hello, leadership class. This is Mr. Hall speaking, and I am making a video for you to cover some of the highlights of Chapter 2 in our book. You should be keeping up weekly with your reading. Make sure that you are also checking on your course page for new announcements. First exam will be coming out in a couple of weeks for you to work on at home. So I'll be looking for the announcements related to your exam coming out. And also just keep up with your reading, keep up with the discussion boards on your postings as well. Remember, discussion boards require that you post an answer to the question and also that you respond to another student's posting as well to receive full credit. Continue reading through and looking at your PowerPoints. I've done a little bit of modification on this particular PowerPoint for you to help you use the book as well to supplement some of the material that's in the PowerPoint. Again, by no means does the PowerPoint or a video presentation replace the book. So you really do need to have access to a copy of this book. So I encourage you to make sure that you have that. In Chapter 2, we're talking about leadership behavior. What are some of the behaviors that leaders tend to show that as followers, we kind of are able to distinguish that they are actually leaders? And so we are looking at different ways in which we can look at what are types of behaviors that leaders actually have. That's a hard thing to do because, as we know, leaders really vary quite a bit. So leaders in different situations can act differently. Some people can emerge as a leader in a certain situation where normally they wouldn't be. So really what we're looking at and what we're really trying to define a little bit in this chapter are, just like I put in red, and by the way, anything that you see in red on my slides are things that I've added to the slides, so it's not part of the textbook. This is just things that I want you to think about as you're looking at these slides and going through the textbook. Also in some of the slides, I actually reference some of the actual page numbers in your textbook that actually will help you define some of the answers of questions that you might see in an exam, for example. So again, in ENT 220, what types of behaviors do you identify as leadership behavior? And then which behaviors are effective and which behaviors are not effective and why. And again, a lot of that really is determined by the type of situation in which we find leaders emerging. But what are the kinds of behaviors, if you think about it, that you would assign to someone who's a leader? Is it someone who takes charge? Is it someone who is controlling, which, as you know, can be a good thing or can be a bad thing? Is it someone who has a lot of charisma, somebody who communicates really well? Are there physical attributes of people that you would assign to being a leader? One of the things that has been a theme throughout history since the 1860s is Abraham Lincoln, who was not a very loud man, who was not a very good speaker either. But he was unusually tall for his time. And many people felt like people equated leadership with him because of his height. I believe it was 6'4" or 5", which was significantly taller. I believe the average man in the 1860s was about 5'7" or 5'8". So he was significantly taller than a lot of people. And there was an attribute that people equated that. But that really wasn't a behavior. What we're really talking about this chapter are some of the behaviors. So we do list in some of the slides here, we're listing some of those types of behaviors that would maybe equate people more universally that this person is actually a leader. Some leaders are very task-oriented. So it's all about getting the job done, accomplishing the task, how we can do it efficiently, how we can do it reliably. And then the second type of leader can be more of a relations-oriented behavior. They're concerned with developing trust, cooperating, job satisfaction, identification with the team or identifying with the organization, a little of that charisma, those kinds of things. Here's the thing though, and I put this in, some leaders can be both, but most tend to lean towards one versus the other. So some people are a little more tuned into relationships. Some people are much more tuned into getting a job done. But I think that most leaders tend to have a little bit of both, but again, they tend to have a little bit more of a majority of one versus the other. So you think about people that you equate as a leader, people that maybe you're going to write your paper about. Remember, you're writing a paper about a business leader. So is that business leader somebody who's very task oriented? Do they tend to be more relational, or a little bit of both? So the book goes on, talks again a little bit about these types of behaviors. Are they people, do they initiate structure, or are they more considerate? Do they have more concern for production, or are they more concerned about people? Are they instrumental leadership, in fact, in that they're using their leadership as a structure, as an instrument to getting a job done? Or are they more supportive? Are they goal-oriented or work-oriented, or are they more supportive? They want to know about you as a person. Do they facilitate? Everything is done to facilitate an outcome. Or are they much more of, hey, are we getting along okay? Do we work well together? Are they all about performance and much more about performance behavior? Or are they people who want to maintain behavior? They want to have long-term relationships with people over time. Again, neither are right and neither are wrong. Usually a combination of the two. But as you evaluate leaders in your paper, this is something that you might want to talk about. So the types of leadership, most people, again, tend to actually resist change. And we have to look at leadership in regards to change. Today I'm actually speaking on January the 20th, where we are swearing in President Biden. And so there's going to be changes. And we're going to have resistance to changes. We'll have some people that embrace these changes and some that resist. And no matter who gets elected to office, we always are going to have that kind of change. We're going to have resistance to change. And so, again, I put in here as a note, most people tend to actually resist change, even though they often say they like change. Why is change so difficult for people? People do like routine. And so when there's a change in leadership, there's a change of a new supervisor for you or a new leader of an organization or company, there tends to be negativism in the beginning until that leader can win them over. And good leaders are always going to know that there's going to be resistance to change, and that they need to do certain things that will help their followers make change. Communicating their vision, proposing changes, and then how they implement it and how they encourage innovation. All of those kinds of behaviors will help leaders navigate through change. So again, we talk about empowering and participative leaders. So empowering leaders, again, some of the things that they empower are making decisions. So if you have an empower leadership strategy, you're empowering people around you, and they do things that make others that are under them feel like they're empowered, and that you are, as a follower, participating in the process. A transformational leader, again, chapter 8 really covers that in detail. But that is relational and change-oriented behaviors where you're actually transforming a whole organization to something different. So again, some leaders are really involved in empowering their followers and also trying to get them to participate in change, where other leaders will just say, this is what we're doing, and don't involve. And again, some strategies can work, some strategies don't work very well. Again, external leadership behaviors, what are some of the leadership behaviors that we can do that are external to our organization that show that someone actually has leadership ability? One of the things is that we network. So people that are going to be leaders, I teach a lot of the entrepreneur courses here at the college, and my entrepreneurs need to learn how to network out, to talk to other business leaders. And that's an important ability of them as a leader of their organization. So building relationships with other people. So having that EQ is really, really important. External monitoring, collecting information and understanding things that are going around in the environment. For me as an instructor in a dynamic program like business, I've got to be connected with business leaders around me to make sure that what we're teaching in our business department really meets the needs of what our students need to have when they graduate. And then, does the leader represent our organization well? Is it someone that you're proud of? to represent your organization as well. So these are types of behaviors externally that leaders typically in organizations will show. I'm not going to go through every slide, by the way. So this particular slide talks about task-oriented behavior. Again, things that are behaviors related to people who are very task-oriented. Again, page 27 here in your textbook is where you'll find that, and then it goes into page 28 and 29 and so on as well. But again, these are all types of behaviors that are that really show that the leader is much more of a task-oriented leader. Things again about like clearly explaining assignments, checking that everybody understands assignments. These are like, even in a school setting, these tend to be the kinds of behaviors that we see in teachers and instructors who are saying, here are the things that we need to get done in order for you to get an A in the course. And that's all well and good, and that's very good. And every one of you guys as students, you want to know what are the specific things that need to be done to get an A. But I was just having a conversation with one of my colleagues this morning, and one of the things we want to try to do is we also want to try to get you to think of things in business-wise in big picture. So it's not just about getting an A, although getting A's in classes is very important and a very good, goal for you guys to have. But ultimately, we want you to graduate with the skill set that's going to make you very successful in business. I'm sure that people don't really pay much attention to what Steve Jobs got as a grade in a particular class in college, but they do know that he was an innovator and a leader. And so, we want you to look beyond just the tasks at hand of getting the things done. We want to make sure that when you leave the course, you actually have learned something that you'll be able to apply. So from these from page 27 all the way through page 33 are going to be discussing specifics about, what are some of those task-oriented leader behaviors that we all have to some degree. And then from page 35, it shifts over to talking more about those relations-oriented leaders. What are some of the things that they do? They offer sympathy, as you can see on the screen, or they're interested in people and individuals. They help people with personal problems a little bit. So we go on with that from that page all the way through to page 40. What are some of those kinds of skills and behaviors that specific relations-oriented leaders have? So again, to sum it up, we have task leaders, we have relationship-oriented leaders, we have a combination of both of those that happen for most leaders. One tends to be more than the others. Again, highly recommend that as you start thinking about your leadership paper, that you are analyzing that business. And again, a business leader, not political leaders, business leader, that business leader, is that business leader more relational oriented or more task oriented? What behaviors do they do or have they done that reflect that kind of a slant towards one or the other? Again, that's it for chapter 2. Again, hope you're keeping up with your assignments. Hang in there with the class. Things are really going to get underway and really start moving now that the Martin Luther King holiday is over as well. I hope that you're all doing well, staying safe and staying healthy. And we will see you when I go over chapter 3. Take care.